there, and welcome to the How to Market Your Horse Business podcast. As you've likely guessed, my name is Denise Alvarez, and I am truly so grateful you're joining me here today. Now, before we jump into the meat of our episode where I have a new friend for you to meet, I first will quickly introduce myself just in case we are new friends, all right? And then we will jump right in. So as I said, my name is Denise Alvarez, and through my business, Storm Lily Marketing, I get to help dream-chasing horse business owners like yourself to see clearly through the marketing overwhelm and to really make an actionable and doable plan to help you turn your online audience into your customers. I do that through one-on-one coaching, as well as website design and website copywriting, and Social Stride, my monthly coaching program. And I do all of these things, including the podcast, so that you can be out in the barn or arena doing what you love to do. Or maybe behind the camera, because I know I also have a number of photographer friends on here too. And so that's why, especially here on this podcast, you will get a mix of step-by-step strategies and basic how-tos, and even some simple but powerful mindset shifts that are going to help you not only see what's possible for your horse business, but I will be here to guide you through that process so you can make it happen. And so as I mentioned, today we have a guest on the podcast, and actually it's my first time to have a veterinarian on the podcast. So I'm excited about that because I know that there are many different types of equine businesses in the world. And so I love to have different types of businesses here to share with you about what they are doing to build a successful business and what they have learned. And especially for my guest today, Dr. Alberto Rullan. I try very hard to say that correctly, and I'm probably not, but he has built his business from the ground up. And so I think that's something that you all will be inspired by. Now, specifically, you'll hear him talk about how getting to where he's at now has really not exactly been a road of sunshine and rainbows, but instead it's one that started with a lot of long hours worked to the point of burnout, right? To the point where he's going, I had a vision for why I came here, and this is not it. And so what am I going to do? And so I believe that many of you can probably identify with that. Now, of course, long hours, that's expected, especially as an equine business owner. However, if you never have a resemblance of balance, if you never have a feeling that you're getting to live the life that you want, that your business is helping you to build a life that you want, and it's just filled with long hours that seem to never end, and you never see the other side, you never see the people that you love, well, then you're going to be inspired by his story, because he's going to share how something inside of him clicked and he realized he needed to make some intentional choices to become the businessman and the leader that he believed he needed to be in order to build the business that he wanted, and ultimately to live the life that he wanted with his family. So they have put in, he and his wife, she is also a veterinarian, and you'll hear about her. They put in, of course, a ton of hard work, personally and professionally, to now reap the benefits and have a business that they really enjoy and that's very successful. So they have a business that they have a lot of team members. So you will hear him talk about the importance of building a team because, of course, in a veterinary practice, you cannot be a solopreneur for long, right? And I know that many of you listening, you may not be to the point where you're building a team, or you may not have that goal just yet, but I want you to know that what he's sharing today applies to you because you are still the CEO of your business. You are still the business leader who's taking your business where you want it to go. All right. So definitely have your notebook or your notes app handy, because he is sharing a lot of goodness in this conversation that you're not going to want to miss and you won't want to forget. So I will, of course, have the highlights for that over at stormlily.com/108. And so you can head over to the show notes and get the highlights from our conversation. But without further ado, I hope you are ready because you're about to meet Dr. Alberto Rullan. All right. Thank you so much for joining me here, Dr. Rullan. I'm going to work on saying that correctly. I'm so grateful you're here. I did a very brief intro about you as we started the podcast. I would love for you to introduce yourself to my audience and let them know what has brought you to this place where you are now a vet with a practice focused on equine performance and even helping other vets in their practice. Share a little bit about yourself, if you would.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Really, really glad that you got me here. I grew up in Puerto Rico, in the mountains of pretty much of the island, and I grew up with horses. Horses were our daily life.
Mm-hmm.
We did everything with horses. By the time I was growing up, we didn't just use horses for pleasure, but we actually used horses also for work. So I would ride horses to the grocery store. I would ride horses to the farm to work the cattle. I would ride horses for show. I would ride horses to hide from my mom and dad when I did not such good things. I would I would ride horses for everything. And my dad, I remember my dad and his friends, they even rode horses to the bar. So horses were definitely our way of life. And one day I was coming from school and I saw a big line of cars stopped. And back in the days, my dad used to train all horses, and then when I would come from school, I would start helping him out, and I would grab my own horses to help him. But this time was interesting. I was 8 years old, and I was coming in the school bus, and I saw a huge line of cars, and I had no idea what was going on. And when I got to the house, it happened that when my dad was training one of those horses, he got into an accident. One he got hit by a car, and it was on my own horse. So my horse got injured pretty bad on both hind legs. And at that time, when I found out, I was devastated because there's nothing that they could do. There was no veterinarian in town. And as an 8-year-old, I was really perplexed and desperate that there was so many human doctors, right, that can help people, but there was no one that could help my horse. So at that moment, I decided that I was just going to dedicate the rest of my life to become a vet and get a veterinary education and help horses with injured legs. So for the next many years, I just dedicated. That's what I did. Because at that moment, I mean, and I still believe that there's no need for anybody to feel that desperate for having their horse injured. Not a kid, a trainer, an owner, anyone. No one should feel that helpless for not helping a horse. So after that, I decided to come to the United States and get a veterinary education because there was no vets and there was no vet schools in Puerto Rico. And all I needed, if I wanted to be a vet, the only thing I needed to do, the only option I had was to come to the States, learn the English language, and then come and start working here. Then that's what I did.
That's amazing. And so tell me how long ago that was. When did you first come to the States for school period?
I came in 1998.
Okay. Uh-huh. And then you've been here since?
Yes, I came. I went to University of Pennsylvania. Well, first I went to Penn State University for an animal science degree. Then I went to University of Pennsylvania for veterinary school. And then I went to Louisiana State.
Okay. Wow. First of all, I think that the fact that you have such a personal story, I appreciate you sharing that insight because I can just imagine the clients that walk in your door, you obviously have such empathy for them from the get-go and you haven't lost that. And I think that's wonderful. And that's probably one of the reasons that you've done so well is because I could tell even just by reading the Google reviews, which I'll talk about that I read on your business when I was just learning more about you and what you're doing. That's something that I saw. And now it makes sense why they all felt like you were on their side. And what you said is just right there. You don't want anyone to feel helpless And I think that shines through. So that's awesome.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
So, like I said, you're actually the first veterinarian I've had on the podcast. So I'm very excited that you have some specific expertise to share in building a vet business, but honestly, or a vet practice, I should say. But whether it's building a practice or it's a horse trainer that's building a training program or an instructor that's building a lesson program or someone that's built a physical or digital product business in the equine industry, as you said before, we are all here in this industry because we love horses and we want to be involved in the industry that we love. So as you've shared about that, let's go back again to, you said you graduated in 2006 as a vet, but then by 2009, you had started your own practice. And you already shared that from the beginning, your goal was specifically to help horses that had leg injuries, right? Is that what you said?
That's right. That's right.
Okay. So what made you decide to go the route of owning your own practice versus just being under someone and specializing?
Oh, that's also a funny story. When I graduated vet school, I went to work for a horse practice here in Florida. And I was pretty much living my dream. I was doing exactly what I wanted to do. I was treating horses, working on my English skills a little bit more. And however, I had some difficulties with certain things. For example, I was working double the amount of time I was expected to work. I mean, we're talking about 90 to 100 hours a week. And I was making about $70,000 a year, which maybe doesn't seem that bad, but the problem with that picture is that I had hundreds of thousands of dollars in student debt. My personal life was going downhill. I was fighting with my wife. I didn't have time to spend with my family. I was drowning in bills. I felt like I left the island to come to work in the US, and here we are still eating rice and beans, no meat. So at that moment, I was sure that the only solution I had was to solve all my problems was to just start my business. So I told my brother William, hey, because my brother was working with me at the moment at the other practice. And I told him, we're leaving this job and we would just start our own business. And that's when our real problems began.
Oh, wow. Why is that?
Well, it was me and my brother, and I was quickly overwhelmed with my technician, William, my marketing director, Alberto, my receptionist, Alberto, my manager, Alberto. and the management of all these people just let me no time to be the veterinarian, Alberto.
Yeah.
So at that moment, that's exactly when I say, hey, I thought to myself, successful horses always have a trainer. And one day I just made the decision that the madness had to stop because it was not going good. And over the course, of course, very encouraged by my wife, I decided that I was going to learn the ins and outs of how to be a good businessman and a good leader. And then for the next 11 years after that, I invested probably over $1 million, which I did not have, by the way, all in credit cards, over the years on business education, personal growth, and even some more veterinary education. I have done a lot more veterinary continuing education than probably most veterinarians. Then I used this information and skills to just turn our life around. So now I'm able to choose when I work. I'm able to spend 40 hours a week of my choice if I want to work on my business. And instead of making $70,000 a year, I can choose how much I make. I honestly can choose if I make 200, 300, whatever I choose. I have the ability to do it. And instead of me doing everything in the clinic, such as billing, cleaning, teaching, then I have a team that help me grow the business, and at the same time they actually grow themselves. That's very important for us. We make sure that our people grow themselves. And then of course now I have two beautiful children, a lovely wife that supports me, and we eat a lot of steaks now, so we're pretty happy with that. Not just rice and beans.
Okay. Wow. This is so good. I so appreciate again your authenticity and sharing these things, because I know that my listeners, like I said, whether they're running a practice or not, running a business, as you shared, is not for the faint of heart. And actually, the time this post on my podcast, the post I made this morning on social media, is going to be older. So I'll mention this, but friends, you'll have to go back and catch it. But I literally just made a post on social media this morning about the idea of a small business owner versus an entrepreneur, and how they aren't really the same thing. And I think that what you explained what you just said is so true. There are many small business owners who are stuck at the part where you said you were all the things and doing it constantly and running yourself to the ground, right? You were a small business owner, but you hadn't embraced really the idea of you being an entrepreneur, of having a vision for you wanted your life and your business to look like, and then making intentional choices and setting up processes and systems to bring that vision to life. And so I love that you have done that. So first of all, congratulations. That's a really big deal.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You put it very nicely. I agree 100%.
Yeah. So I would love for you've already shared some really wonderful nuggets, but I know that you have some other things to share about the process of what that's really looked like to build a business from the ground up. Now, like I said, I've been on your website. I've looked at the Google reviews. I've seen the things, because I wanted to know, of course, who I was talking to and about your business. And what I saw, I loved, because you've clearly done a great job building this business up and building a team. It's obvious that it's a team effort. So I would love for you to break down some of the really key things that you have helped you and your wife and your brother to build this business to where it is right now.
Sure, I would love to, absolutely. And I'm probably not going to be able to get to all the concepts, but I'm going to give you the first three, which are, I think, the most important for any future entrepreneur and any business owner as well. And then, by the way, then we can talk about some books and references that helped me out a lot.
I love that.
We can talk about that as well. And then for your listeners, I've created a little website that they can go to, and I'll tell you at the end, where they can download a chart, so they don't have to take notes, or at least they have kind of my own notes, little chart that me and my assistant Amanda helped me prepare for your listeners to help with this. The way to optimize the equine profession, I call this the 8 concepts of an equine professional services or an equine business. To optimize them is just so important to have your personal, professional, and financial goals in mind. Doesn't matter who it is. It's absolutely mind-boggling how many business owners start a business without actually knowing where they're going, or not even knowing where they want to go. I was one of them. And when I talk to equine professionals, and I talk a lot about chiropractors, physical therapists, massage therapists, technicians, grooms, I talk about, hey, you need to have at least the first 3 things to know are: you need to have a good visualization, and we'll talk about that. You need to have a way to set up goals and targets, and you have to have a way to increase your productivity. And Denise, if by any chance you lose me, just stop me and ask me any questions, okay?
Okay, perfect. Sounds good.
So the first concept is, I always say it has to be visualization, because if you're able to imagine anything, you can make it happen. I mean, you think of the crazy things that have happened in the world, it can happen, right? And now let me do a little exercise, for example, and I have this idea of visualization that I would like to do with you, if you let me. I want you or your listeners to close your eyes and imagine a lemon. I say close your eyes, and then now cut through that lemon. As you cut through it, you're feeling the lemon juice that spray over your hand. As you cut, now pick up the half a lemon and squeeze it in your mouth. taste the juice, the sourness of the juice. Now open your eyes. And Denise, did you taste that lemon?
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously not literally, but like I get
right. The drops touching your hands. You can almost. There's no lemon in front of you, but you can visualize it. So that is a simple example that I use. And then now let's take a little bit of it within the same page. Let's do a real world exercise, which is, what is your ideal scene? We need to have a way to visualize our ideal scene, our happiest time. Now, let's do this exercise again, just for fun. And you close your eyes, and I want you to imagine your ideal scene in 5 years. If everything was going to be perfect, according to all the wishes, all the goals, plans that you have for yourself and your family, you think of the house you will be living, think of the scenery you will be enjoying, how many kids you have. And it's okay if you don't have kids, by the way. Where's your relationship with your significant other? Now open your eyes. And that is the perfect example of visualizing your ideal scene. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Some people call it good. Some people call it postulating your future. Like if you imagine it, you can make it happen. So I encourage everybody that every morning and every afternoon, think about the ideal scene. And I have a mentor that tells me, if you think of it, and you visualize it, the world, the planets, the stars will align with what you're thinking. Even more if you can write it down. I learned this from a mentor called Brandon. His name is Brandon Dawson, and he says, what you think is what you say, and what you say is what you do, and what you do becomes your legacy. And he says this like over and over again, and it's so true to me. And I share it with all my listeners and students, because it's the basic concept of knowing where your equine business is going to be. Sometimes I feel like we don't think big enough. Does that make sense?
It does. And like you said, especially when your head is in the ground, right? Whether you're in the early stages and you're in the hustle mindset, you forget to stop and think about where you're headed intentionally. Or it could be someone that's listening that's like, I've been in the hustle and grind for 5 to 10 years now, and I've kind of forgotten why I'm doing what I'm doing. Right. So yeah, It makes perfect sense.
Yes. And that was me. I still feel like that sometimes. And then the second concept that I talk about is setting goals and targets, because once you visualize it, then you have to then get your goals right and get your targets right. It's so important to set goals and targets, because then what I did and what I encourage people to do is to reverse engineer the ideal scene and work backwards from the top. Wherever you were going to be 5 years, then what do we need to do in year number 1, year number 2, year number 3, year number 4 to get to the ideal scene? And then after that, I break it even further. I break it per month, and then per week. And then we set targets to meet. And if we're not meeting those targets, sometimes we get a little complacent, right? And we're like, oh, I didn't do it this week. Oh, I'll do it next week. Or I'll do it next week. Then 5 years pass and you never reach your goals. And especially with me, the reason that was happening is because I was having so much fun with the horses. In reality, I was having I didn't have a balance of where I wanted to go versus all the fun that I was having. I didn't realize all the potential that was ahead of the game. And for that reason, I was being, at the end of the road, I was dead poor. I declared poverty for like 5 years. Because I was having so much fun with the horses, and I had no idea what my goals were. So the goal setting is super easy. but sometimes super easy to explain and sometimes a little bit difficult to set. So a goal is like what I talk about. A goal is a desired outcome, and then the target I define it as something smaller. And when you have multiple targets that you work together, then you attain that goal, and the set of targets will get you that goal. A simple example is like we have a patient. In our case, we have a horse that wants to lose 200 pounds. So we set the goal to lose 200 pounds. Then a target would be something like, okay, we lose 10 pounds a week. We swim 1,600 feet 3 times a week. We walk 2 miles a day, 2 miles 6 times a week. And if we have a target of no change, that's a target, no change in current diet, for example. And then we wait every week, and we call that the statistics. So that is a simple example of targets, right? Now let's use this a little bit. Let me give you an example in the business sense that would resonate. Let's say we want to see 1,000 horses in year 2023. So that's our goal. Then how are we going to accomplish that? And I have all this written down, right? Everything, everyone should write all of this, because if you write it, you will make it happen. And we have for this specific example, 1,000 horses in 2023. Whether you're a chiropractor, a technician, a writer, a trainer, whatever it is. Then we set the target. Send 2 emails a week to all my current clients. Attend 2 events a month. Make 5 calls a day to prospective clients, or make 5 calls a day to current clients. And then we track that goal, which is the trick is that we have to track your efforts. We have to track what the results of those efforts are. Then if we know that we need to hit 83 horses a month, 20 patients a week, or 4 patients a day to accomplish our goal. And then now we have numbers that we can track, and we can adjust our efforts towards reaching our goal. Following me so far?
Yeah, I'm tracking with you. You're doing such a great job breaking it down. I love it. It's very similar. I have a goal challenge that I did inside of my membership, and we did something very similar. And I love the way you're breaking it down.
Oh, perfect. Well, hopefully I'm potentiated your process and your listeners know that it works, right?
Right. Exactly.
Because the next concept is a very important concept, and is, how do I increase production? Because nothing stays stagnant. And I think that is sometimes when we say, oh, I'm happy where I am, but nothing. Try to do something for a long time and stay the same. Try to be at 50 miles an hour in a car for a very long time. It will either go down or go up. And it's so important that when we're talking in business, we always shoot to go up, and we try to force ourselves or push ourselves not to go down. So we need to have a system to increase our production. And there is this misconception in the equine community, and it has hit me, continues to hit me every day, that we should not make money. Because we do what we do for the love of the animal, not for the money, that we should not have a great quality of life, that we should always work extremely long hours, even if we don't get paid. And that is an example of a fixed idea, some misconception that, although appeared to be true in the past with our forefathers, is not necessarily the case today. Maybe I diverge a little bit, I digress a little bit, but it's so important for me, it's so important to motivate the equine professionals to actually get a good business, make more money, and have a better life. And that's why the first step to increase production, it has to be to measure your current production. And there are multiple ways to measure production, obviously. Most people, the easiest way is to measure their gross revenue, how much they make that week or that year or that month, or how many clients they got that week or that year or that month. They can make how many calls per week, how many emails per week, how many events attended. The important thing is to track it, and then you can even graph it and see if your graph every week is going up. And if your graph is going down, then you're in trouble. You need to make changes. I am very, very surprised how many equine professional business don't track their numbers until the end of the year when their accountant tells them, "Oh, this is what you made." That surprised me a lot.
Well, tell me this. When did that change? Did you do that from the beginning, or did that change for you when you changed your mindset?
It totally changed when I changed my mindset. Let me tell you
Yeah.
how it was in 2012. My wife and I, we made another very interesting decision. We bought a small animal clinic, and at that moment, the practice was grossing, I would say, about 800,000 per year. Very small practice for a small animal business, 1.5 vet. Then my wife was pregnant with her second child, and she was overwhelmed with transitions, resignations, managing people and managing business, pregnant, not knowing what she's doing. I'm trying to grow another practice and trying to do something else. Bottom line, then on top of that, we have a major issue where the vet that we bought it from, he opened a practice almost next door, and he was calling all the clients.
Yeah.
So to make this story short, that's when we really set our goals to say, okay, let's track everything that's happening. We track the clients that we're making, the clients that we were losing. We track our gross income, everything that I just told you. And then at that moment, we decided to get our goals, get our targets, and we did get some consultants to help us out, because it's so difficult to do all this without knowing, because you don't know what you don't know. There's so many things that we don't know. And then at that moment, we pretty much started implementing everything that I just told you, and moving up, and making sure that we never went down, and probably increased that growth maybe by 3 or 4 times by now.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on that. But I appreciate you going back to that, because I do think it's important. It is easy so often to say what you said before, like there's so many people that aren't doing it, and it is hard to believe, and it is. And sometimes people forget that, like we said, that they are running a business and they think they're just doing it because they're having fun with horses. But again, you're not staying stagnant. And if you're going to grow, then you've got to make some intentional choices. And so some of that is changing that mindset. Kind of one of the other things I've talked about on the podcast here is that idea of as a hobby versus a business, right? Many people are running it as a hobby when it's really a business. And when it's a business to you, then you are going to stop and make the choice to track the things that you're talking about and really know where you stand and where you're going. So I appreciate that so much.
Yeah. And I love what you're saying, because sometimes I'm talking to equine professionals, and I say, okay, I want to start my own business. I say, okay, good. How many employees are you going to have? Oh, just me. And that's when I think we think a little bit about the opportunity to actually start your own business and make it a business rather than a hobby, because I like to look at business as something that's an investment opportunity for the future, something that you could pretty much build your retirement out of it, and that can help you out. And sometimes we treat what should be a business, we treat it like a hobby. And I used to do that. I used to even say that, oh, I just have a great hobby that pays me well.
Yeah.
That used to be my favorite phrase. And that's exactly where it was. It was just me and my brother having our hobby. It was, I wouldn't consider a business, especially because if I was going to sell it, no one would have given me $1 for that business. So if I want to build a business, I want to build something that I could build wealth, build something that I could retire, build something that I could potentially sell or pass down to my kids, that they can run it and they actually have a legacy. That's what I think when I think of building a business. That something that you build that could last. I think there's some some great book by Jim, by who is it? Is it Jim
Jim
Collins?
Collins.
Jim Collins,
Yeah.
Built to Last. Built to
Yep.
Last, right? He also has another great book that I just finished not too long ago.
Is it Good to Great?
Starting with Why.
Oh,
Start with Why.
Simon Sinek, right?
Yes, with Simon. I just finished that, and I started Built to Great is another great one. Yes, and this he talks about in Good to Great. He talks about how you actually how you get a business that is stagnant, and how some great leader has come and all of a sudden turn it around and make it a great business. And he talks a lot about all these things, how they run a business. Super great book.
Yeah, for sure. For all the listeners, just so you know, these notes that I'm taking, I will put in the show notes for the episode. So I will link to the books, all the books that you mentioned. I'll make sure to get linked to, and then there will be highlights of everything you're saying here, because it's so golden. And I know that some people may be note takers, but some people might be listening while they're mucking the barn, which is what I hear most often. So in that case, just know you can head to the show notes for the episode, and I will have highlights of all of these things here for you.
Oh, that is so good of you. I've recently, my wife and I finished reading this book called The 5 a.m. Club. We were hooked. It is so amazing because it actually helps you how to increase productivity and make the most out of your day. And with great English, is very, very poetic at the same time. It was an amazing book.
That's good to know. I've not read that one because I'm not going to lie, I'm not a morning person, and it kind of intimidates me. But I know it has a podcast. Someone told me about it podcast too. So since you love the book, you might check out his podcast. I've heard good things. But the 5 a.m. that makes me a bit nervous. Not going to lie. But I'm all about productivity, so maybe I should check it out.
You really should. My wife is not a morning person at all. Not at all. And since we've been married for 10 years, I got up every day around 4:30, 4:45, and she thought I was crazy. We read this book together, and for the last 4 or 5 months, she has been getting up with me at 4:45 and going to the gym with me at 5 a.m. every morning.
Wow.
I would say she might not notice it, but I can tell you she looks like she's a whole different person.
That's so interesting. I would love to hear what she has to say about that process then. Okay, well, I want to make sure that I honor your time as well. So you have said so many goodness, and I think I jumped in when you were talking at the end, but I know you said you had your 3 points. And so you talked about figuring out how to increase production and the importance of that. And then you said that you wanted to share some other books and resources. I've written down some of the ones that we talked about. Are there other books and resources that you wanted to reference for my listeners that might want to go check them out?
My favorite book, and by the way you talk, I know that you have read this book, but my favorite book of all times is The 5 Levels of Leadership by John Maxwell. For anyone that is starting a business in the world, I really think this should be the number one book to read, because it's just so easy. It's easy to read. And then he talks about very similar things that we have talked in the last 20 minutes that we've been talking, but he puts it on a business sense, right? He talks about how a person can go, especially for the equine professionals. I feel like he's just talking to us, because he talks about how a person can move different levels of leadership. And sometimes with us as horse professionals, we like to do everything, right? We like to do everything ourselves. And then we need to learn how to master what we do. And then where I feel like I was failing the most was having others, teaching it to others, so that others could do it and I could lead them doing it. Because I was just doing it all by myself, everything myself, and I couldn't pass anything to any of them, to anyone else. And I was not able to grow as a leader. And everything falls on leadership. as you grow your business. Doesn't matter what business you want to do. Can you imagine? Check this out. I might tell me if I'm going over your time, but this is so interesting.
No, you're good.
Imagine you're a janitor, right? You would think that how could a janitor become a millionaire? Well, how can someone become a millionaire cleaning? But look at all these companies that grew their business. In Ocala, we have a company named Waste Pro. We have some multi-million-dollar companies that make a ridiculous amount of money by throwing trash. So that's one example that I give on how you can make a business out of anything, and you can do so well if you learn how to lead people and how to make something with systems, which bring you to another book, the E-Myth by Michael Gerber. He talks about how you can make those systems where then now you can use your leadership and make a system for everybody else, and then you can continue growing your business. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, that's good. So tell me this, so that people have a good frame of reference of your business and who they're learning from. Tell me a little bit more about specifically at the moment of this recording, because I know it's growing and evolving. Yeah. What does your business look like right now in terms of team members, locations, that type of thing?
So right now, we have a small animal business. We have the equine clinic, which is what we've been talking about. Then the equine clinic has two businesses in one. We have an ambulatory business, and we have a rehab and surgical center. And that one is in one location. Then in another location, we have a small animal clinic. And then in the small animal clinic, we have a full team of about 26 people. And in our equine business, we have a full team of about 22 people. So we went to about, we have about 50 people overall in our team right now.
Okay, that's so helpful, I think, for everybody to understand what it looks like for you. But I would say what I know that you would probably say, just from talking to you, is that what's important as a business owner is that you build a business that is going to bring you joy. And so some of you listening are saying, okay, so here's my question for you then. For the person that's listening and saying, okay, I hear you, but I don't want to build a business of 50 people.
Oh, yeah.
I would like to keep it small. I know that's a question you get. Tell me what you say back.
No, that's perfect. And I'm okay. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that because you have to be happy with what you do, right? For example, I have chiropractor's friend. I have a real good friend that's a chiropractor, and he has his own business, and his choice, by choice, he's like, I want to stay small. I said, okay, no problem. If you want to have a business, you probably need at least 3 people. So if you want to have I call him the technician, right? We are technicians when I'm working on a horse myself. I'm being the technician. Then I have someone in administration that's helping me with the bills, etc. And then you have someone in some sort of other role like marketing, etc. But any business, doesn't matter how big the business is, doesn't matter how many people you have in a business, you will have 7 major departments. For example, you have an executive department, you have a reception department, you have some sort of promotion department, you have some sort of financial department, as you go to the bank, right? You have some sort of quality control department, you have some sort of marketing outside department, and sometimes one person can choose to do all of those. But a small business who wants to stay small, I would say, out of everybody that we have consulted and talked about, you're probably going to be better the smallest, maybe 3 or 4. And that's what I have seen. That's my experience. And still, you're probably going to be married to your job, which is okay, right? I have no problem with it. And if you're going to do that, please have a good financial plan to one, be debt free, to do some sort of investment in the future, where eventually at some point when you have kids, when you're 50, 60, or 70, you have done some sort of real sound, good, positive investment that give you money while you are actually not working, some sort of passive investment. And there's a lot of people that have done it. They built this chiropractor that I told you about. He built a lot of wealth. He worked a lot. Then he did some good business decision where he was able to put money in a either in real estate or some sort of other passive income. Then they get money. Then they get money coming in, and that's a whole different conversation. Obviously, we can go a whole different podcast on what to do with your money. But that's what I tell. If they want to stay small, it's even more important to figure out how you're going to get money in the future. How are you going to create wealth?
Yeah. Okay. That's so good. And I have actually another podcast episode that came to mind while you were talking that I will make sure to put in the show notes. I had Shelley Paulson, who is an equine photographer, on the podcast talking about the idea of scaling and growing while keeping a small team. And literally that was the thing. She knew that she didn't want to build this really large team, but she wanted to scale her business. And so she talked specifically about some of the strategies that she had. And so I'm sure that you two would have a great conversation as well. And I will make sure and link to that episode in the show notes too, for those of you that are listening. Those are super good insights.
Perfect.
Okay. I'm going to do a side note that I will pause or I'll just cut this out, but I actually do have to go pick up my kiddo from school. And so I don't want to bring you to a close harshly, or what is the right word? Rashly on the episode. So I'm going to move on to the last question of asking if there's anything else we can talk about the gift, but man, it would be so fun to do a future episode again together, because I think you have lots of great things and I'm really enjoying our conversation. But I do have to go get my kiddo from school here in a bit.
I understand. I would love to. It's a lot of fun. I'm very passionate about this because of helping equine professionals. It's just my passion. So
I can tell. I love that. And you're doing a great job. Okay. So I will close this out then with the last question about, what else they should know. And you can talk about the free gift link.
Okay, great.
Okay. All right. This has all been so helpful. I know that you have so many great things to share, and I so appreciate your gift of time today. I would love to know if there's anything else that my listeners should know about building their own successful business in the equine industry. Any other golden nuggets you want to share before you leave?
Thank you, Denise, for it's been. I think we definitely ran out of time because I can talk about this forever. But there are many things that they should know, obviously. And what I did is I created this gift, like I told you earlier on. You can go to the website, www.freegiftfromalberto.com, www.freegiftfromalberto.com. You're not going to get a 1,000 emails, or you're not going to get anything when you sign up for it. It's just a chart that I made kind of to talk about everything that we talk about during this podcast and more things that should be optimized during the business setting process. And for your podcast, and I put it also in a link, you can, I would love to have a free 30-minute consult with I put a little link to my calendar if they want to book it. Completely free, no commitment. My passion is to help equine professionals, and like I say, I've done all kinds of equine professionals, all the way from grooms. Today I met actually with 2 grooms and 2 technicians to help them create wealth and help their family, help them get a house, help them create some future wealth. So I would love to talk to anybody who would like to talk about these topics. And my email, obviously, is gonna be, actually I'll put it in the freegiftfromalberto.com, www.freegiftfromalberto.com. And that's just all I have. Thank you so much for listening.
Yes, great. Well, I will put that link in the show notes, of course, and I appreciate you doing that. And again, for those that are listening, I did check with him. And so I did say hey, people are going to be putting their email addresses in to get this. And so they'll want to know. And that's why he was very clear to say, hey, I'm not going to be sending lots of emails. I just want to give this to you. So it's just something that he wanted to gift to you all. And so I appreciate that. It's a great visual. Thank you so much. I so appreciate this conversation. It has been lovely to talk to you. I appreciate you sharing your story. And of course, let everybody know where they can connect with you online in terms of social media. If they want to check out your website, Instagram, that type of thing, where can they find you?
I'm pretty sure you Google Alberto Rullan and you will get Alberto Rullan in Ocala. There are two of us. One of them is a reporter, which I found out recently. But the Alberto Rullan Ocala, Alberto Rullan, you're gonna find me on my Instagram, find my Facebook also, and my website.
Okay, perfect.
AlbertoRullan.com.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. I'll link to all those things too on the show notes. But for anybody who's just on their phone and saying, I just want to go check it out right now, you can go find them there. Thank you so much again. I so appreciate it. Best of luck to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, friends, I hope that you are really walking away from this episode with much inspiration in your heart, as well as one or two specific things that you are going to apply in your business starting today. Because here's the thing, you and I both know that the way we're going to make progress and move towards that vision we have for our business and our family and our life is to take action. So my encouragement and my challenge to you today, because I know that this episode was packed with a lot of information. My encouragement and my challenge is that you would take one or two things, write it down, and look at how you can start to apply that in your business, okay? That's what I would love for you to do, because I really do believe that he shared so many things that are speaking to you and where you're at in your business right now. And so I want to see you make steps and progress, all right, moving forward. Now, of course, as I mentioned, if you head to the show notes at stormlily.com/108, you're going to find a link to the resource that you heard Alberto mention, as well as links to his website. And I am linking to the books that he mentioned, because if you're like me, you were taking notes and you're ready to dive in and see what else you can learn from those great books. And so I am linking to each of those books in the show notes. And I would love to hear from you as well. Which one are you going to dive into? I can tell you for myself, the next one I'll be reading is The 5 Levels of Leadership that he talked about by John Maxwell. It's already in my cart, and I will be getting it as soon as I finish the one I'm currently reading. So I would love to hear from you guys. Send me a message on Instagram or send me an email. Which of these books, A, you've read before and you would highly recommend, or B, you're going to be diving into. Now, I will also have a link on the show notes to the episode that I referenced in our conversation with equine photographer Shelly Paulson, where she shared her story about growing her business and how she was able to grow it without necessarily scaling it in the way that we so often hear about and think is required, right? So for Alberto, yes, he grew a team, and you heard him talk about that. And so I want you to also hear from Shelly about the idea of growing without scaling a team, okay? Because here's the deal. You are the business owner. And you get to build a business that fits your lifestyle, your family's needs, financially and otherwise, right? You have the freedom to do that. So my goal here on the podcast is to give you the resources, the references, the people that you can look to as an example to see what's possible, and then to equip you to make that happen. All right, friends, that is all I have for you today. I am so grateful that you were here. Again, head to the show notes at stormlily.com/108 for the highlights and the links. And if you enjoyed this episode, I would love it if you would send a message to Alberto and let him know, and share it with a friend. All right, share the love. Let other people know that this podcast is here equipping you in your equine business. All right, thanks so much for joining me here. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Have an amazing day.